Every year, a lovely sight. Lambs in the field next to the garden. Spring is in the air. Now, March, I think it's time we looked at some magnolias. So I'm going to take you through some magnolias here in the garden, and when I say take you through, I mean we'll walk through them. I think this is a really rather nice way of looking at them. You sort of feel part of them. This is Merrill, by the way. We're going over in that direction towards a really splendid magnolia called Milky Way. I always thought Milky Way should be white, but in fact it isn't. It's got these pink flowers. Isn't it magnificent? Absolutely full. Let's go around the corner. Here we are behind Milky Way. We have another view of the magnolias in this bit of the garden. And here is Iolanthe. She is pretty splendid too. Pinker than Milky Way. And here's a lovely flower of Apollo, a deeper colour still. Coming around the corner here, we come upon what to my mind looked like hot air balloons in flight. I remember seeing them in Bristol, a whole load of them in the sky, and this magnolia reminds me of that. It is called, appropriately enough, black tulip. The flowers are tulip-shaped and quite dark. Doesn't make a very large tree, but it is very distinctive. And next to Magnolia Milky Way is another very decorative magnolia called Sunrise. It comes out a sort of pale yellow with a red flash, but this yellow soon pales to white, but the red flash remains. Doesn't form a big tree, but it's very floriferous this year and very decorative. Bertie and the petals. Rather nice. In my last video I extolled the virtues of Chamelia Leonard mesel, and now I present to you Magnolia Leonard mesel. I have a little bit of an apology to make because, as you can see down here, this tree I planted about 40 years ago has really spread itself extremely widely and was taking up an awful lot of space. So I cleaned up the bottom, took away quite a few large branches, and has left a slightly sorry specimen, but it will, I'm sure, fill up in time and become the wonderful magnolia that it actually is. I'm coming down here just to show you this fantastic magnolia. You can see it's up there. But luckily, there's a bit down here which is at eye level. They're going over a bit, and it is one of the earliest in the garden, although this year it's been a bit tardy. Got a bit damaged by the weather, but it is an amazing magnolia. This one is Kirhay's Bell, and some people unkindly have likened it to a pink cabbage, but I think it's better than that, frankly. Out of proportion when it's a small tree, just starting life, but after 30 years it's got quite big, and these flowers are much more in proportion. Something interesting in the bushes? Walking along the border of the tennis court in the south side. I must say this Edgeworthia bush, red dragon, well, orange dragon I think by the time we get here, stands out really well from the crowd and makes a punctuation point along the border. Another good dose of pink is this rhododendron. Rhododendron racemosum. Most attractive. It's got these sort of sticky out stamens. Now, these rhododendrons are sort of shades of pink. And the one at the back here is, I would say, wins the prize for the pinkness of the flowers. It's a hybrid which I cannot remember the name of, although I have a feeling bald, as in no hair, comes into the name somewhere. But it's a splendid early rhododendron. Coming round, we've got another rhododendron racemosum here. A pink collection. Now, if a shrub could be said to drip with flowers, then I think this is the one. Some enlarged berberis from Chile, from Valdivia province. This is called Berberis valdiviana, and it certainly does drip flowers. And beyond it is one of my very, very favourite magnolias. It's an evergreen magnolia, very slightly on the tender side, but it's been flowering for over a month now, 6 weeks even. It's got lovely white flowers against a lovely dark evergreen foliage. This is Magnolia maudiae. Now, the thing is that luckily there are one or two at nose level, because these flowers are scented, I think, very reminiscent of a Gardenia. Very sweet and spicy. Fantastic scent. And it just goes on and on flowering. It's been here 20 years at least, and seems quite hardy in this climate with us. One of the best white magnolias here in this garden, at any rate, is this one called David Clulo. David Clulow had an optician's business and was also very keen on magnolias. And even though we've had what might be called quite a lot of weather in the last week or two, these have remained remarkably unsullied. Going up towards the Pope's urn, I think the 40-year-old Sulangiana picture magnolia is a real picture now, absolutely full of flowers every year. And on the other side of this holly walk is another really good white magnolia here called Manchu Fan. And behind it is a plant a magnolia bred by Ian Baldick of New Zealand. And when he came around the garden several years ago, he suggested that I buy this hybrid of his called Ian's Red. I'm always a bit wary because these New Zealand hybrids, the colours are not as intense as they are in New Zealand. But I guess altogether they make a bit of a red show. And anyway, it's nice to have met the hybridist. Now you see this astonishingly tall, after only a few years, evergreen magnolia. You think, magnolia? But what about the flowers? Where are they? Well, they're here. But you have to get up close and personal, otherwise you'll miss them. Doesn't make a great show, but I think they are very sweet, these flowers. This is Magnolia Compressor. And I think in a previous video I explained that for years, 25 years, 30 years, a shrub called Clara japonica was marketed as this magnolia, which of course it wasn't at all. How this escaped through the net, I don't know. But anyway, after 35 years, I finally got hold of the actual Magnolia Compressor, which is what this is. And I'm rather pleased. Very sweet. Now along the path here, coming past the Magnolia Compressor, I smell a kind of a chlorinated, rather unpleasant smell. And it's emanating from this extremely pleasant shrub. It has dark green leaves, sets off the flowers perfectly, I think. And the flowers have got this fleck of pink behind the yellow, somewhat fleshy petals. This is an Elysium Simonsi. In a garden with some rare magnolias. This one is called martinii. It's an evergreen magnolia from China. And I had a plant of this about 20 years ago, and it really is flowering its heart out now.